here in Texas, but all the way over at 2 a.m. in the morning in Croatia. Lloyd Evans is joining me tonight. Lloyd Evans is a writer. He is a video producer. I mean, he's done a bunch of stuff. He gives talks. He is an ex-Jehovah's Witness, and he's written about his experiences. And he's also a fan of street epistemology as well. And I recently reached out to him and thought he would be a great fit for our show. So, Lloyd, welcome to Truth One, and thanks so much for joining us at 2 a.m. in the morning.
I know.
That's
only for you, Dan. Only for you.
I'm flattered. I'll be honest. I did not realize.
It's great to be back because obviously I was in the studio where you are now, maybe a week or so ago. So
yes, and
it's nice to be gracing the screen again.
That's
for
right.
The ACA.
I had to get you on my program because, couldn't let that happen otherwise. But I'm so glad that you're here tonight. So for those who are unaware, I mean, most people watching this program are probably pretty familiar with the Jehovah's Witnesses and kind of what they do. But what's your relationship with the Jehovah's Witnesses, and why do you talk about them so much?
Well, I'm a former Jehovah's Witness. I disassociated in 2013 after going through quite a lengthy period of introspection and research and realizing I basically no longer believed. And the reason why I do the activism that I do is because, apart from being wrong, Jehovah's Witnesses also happen to be quite an abusive, controlling group that ruins people's lives in a number of areas, including shunning, persuading people to die rather than accept blood transfusions, and the industrial scale cover-up of child sex abuse. So there's quite a few things to be talking about there, and a few ways.
Yeah, quite a number of different things. I mean, a lot of charges brought against this organization, and when somebody hears something like that, it's like, oh my goodness. Why aren't we stopping this? Why is this happening? What's going on? If all of these things are true about this organization, why do you think that most people don't know about it? And, why hasn't much been done about it as of late? I mean, I know some things have been done, right? And we're talking about it now. Obviously, we know about it. But what's preventing people from knowing about a lot of what's been going on?
Well, two reasons. I mean, when you think of Jehovah's Witnesses, you just think of a group that bothers you on a Saturday morning, perhaps. And even if they are bothering you, they're usually very polite and kind and friendly. So you don't like to think of such friendly people representing an organization that's guilty of so many terrible things. But I think that we're also just frankly living at the wrong point in history. I think that there's far too much credence given, not credence, but there's far too much leeway given to religion in general, so that organizations are able to get away with a great deal if they can just persuade people that they are religions. So we're just living at the wrong point in history, and hopefully future generations will figure out a way of holding religions to account without trampling people's freedoms of thought and conscience.
Yeah, because so even when I was an atheist, or when I became an atheist, I still didn't know much about the Jehovah's Witnesses. I knew two things. I knew they didn't celebrate birthdays, and Michael Jackson was one. I think that summed up my facts about Jehovah's Witnesses. And I knew that they went door to door, but I had never actually had really any encounters with that where I grew up. So that was kind of just a cultural fact that I knew, but that didn't really personally apply to me. And the more that I looked into it, I mean, really, it was voices like yours, voices like Telltale Atheist, that kind of told me a lot more about what exactly the Watchtower Society is doing, and what they have done and are continuing to do. The history of that organization, by the way, really, really, really crazy if you understand it in retrospect. I think maybe at the time, if before, and I'm talking specifically about the number of prophecies that have been made, the way that the organization has talked about specific social issues and stuff. It's easy for me as an outsider to kind of look at that and say, wow, this is kind of ridiculous. But, if I never grew up in that kind of world, and so I understand that there's probably a difference in understanding as well from growing up from it versus, being an outside observer kind of talking about it critically, right?
Sure, there's a big difference between looking in at an organization that has crazy beliefs and actually being raised in it. And when you are a child and your parents are telling you, hey, Armageddon's coming very, very soon, and if you're not a follower of this religion, you're going to be among those who are slaughtered. So all of your school friends are going to die unless you can persuade them when you go to school that they need to join the religion as well. So if your parents are telling you that, who are you to doubt them? You just assume that your parents are right and they have a good grasp on reality. It's only when you kind of get a bit older and perhaps there are events change in your life. I mean, in my own case, I moved to a different country. I moved to Croatia, where I'm broadcasting from, indeed. And because I was no longer attending meetings, regular weekly meetings in my own language, the meetings were suddenly in Croatian and I couldn't understand what was being said. It was like I'd hit a reset button because this constant flow of indoctrination had been interrupted, and it just gave me the breathing space to think, hang on, what do I think? What are my beliefs? And that was what helped me to kind of reboot and figure out that I'd been in a cult for a couple of decades.
Yeah.
But it's not that simple for a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses. They do, go from cradle to grave, expecting Armageddon to strike any moment.
And so why do you think Jehovah's Witnesses in particular are a cult as opposed to other Christian denominations? Or maybe you think other Christian denominations are cults too. But like, what is it that prompts you to use that word specifically to describe the organization?
Well, first of all, I think cult is a problematic word to use because it tends to isolate people rather than persuade them. So, I would never just walk up to a Jehovah's Witness and say, you're in a cult, because there are far more productive ways of engaging with them. But yes, I do consider Jehovah's Witnesses to be a cult. But then my own view as an atheist is that virtually all religions are cults. I see it as a spectrum. So there's at the extreme end, you have groups like ISIS, and these are extreme cults. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you have soft cults. And it's conceivable to me that you could have a group that has very benevolent teachings, that teaches, for example, that everyone should just love each other and be tolerant of each other. But if they are in the business of lying to children and indoctrinating children with things that aren't true, they're still doing humanity a disservice. So they're still a cult of a sort. So, I think all religions to some degree are guilty of that. So that's why I think all religions are cults. But certainly Jehovah's Witnesses are among the more damaging cults and controlling cults out there.
Yeah, and so, the extent of what we would call the damage of being a Jehovah's Witness, or being a part of, the organization, what does that look like, and how has it affected other people?
It affects people in profound ways. So the work that I do on my channel, I obviously produce videos that are aimed hopefully at nearly everyone, because my aim is to raise awareness among people like yourself who've never been Jehovah's Witnesses. But I do certainly try and reach out to current and former Jehovah's Witnesses. And I lose track of the amount of times that someone will email me and say, I left the organization years or decades ago, and only now, through watching your videos, have I finally stopped fearing Armageddon. So that's how profoundly these teachings can affect someone. Even after you've left, you're still going to bed each night thinking, if Armageddon comes during the night, I'm toast, because I'm transgressing one of the myriad things that I'm not supposed to do if I accept Jehovah's Witness teachings. So these are beliefs that really affect people in profound ways. It's not unheard of for people to commit suicide, for example, especially if they've been disfellowshipped and they're being shunned by their family. So it's these sorts of stories that really motivate me to do the work I'm doing.
Man, so yeah, like I said, it just blew my mind how much I didn't know about Jehovah's Witnesses and what they do. Just my entire life, I was just completely oblivious to it. And it's not like I'm talking about a group of people that live in some other country and, it's a small group. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people, some of them probably my neighbors, some of them, all across the U.S., who have these beliefs, who kind of associate in these insular communities. And like it's almost also frustrating because it's like I can't even talk to a lot of these people about this, even if I wanted to, because part of being a Jehovah's Witness, from what I understand, is you're cutting yourself off from, like, I don't expect any Jehovah's Witnesses to be watching this program right now.
Oh, I wouldn't be too sure about that.
Oh,
because,
yeah? Well, you mean
I mean, you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
This isn't the sort of thing that you would be supposed to watch, especially if there's an apostate on it like me. But I think what we're finding is that Jehovah's Witnesses, there's such a thing called PIMO Jehovah's Witnesses. PIMO is PIMO, physically in, mentally out. So there's a percentage of Jehovah's Witnesses who are gradually waking up, and it's such a gradual process that I really wouldn't write off there being at least a handful of people maybe watching tonight who are just curious to see what the big bad apostate is going to say about their religion.
So it's almost like an underground railroad of sorts, what we're doing here. We're like trying to help people get out of what we're doing there. That's interesting. Like I would be, obviously I think most people who grew up religious and who became atheists, I think a lot of them have baggage from that. I can't imagine what the baggage would be like from growing up with the particular beliefs of Jehovah's Witness, that being of the coming apocalypse, that being of just like very specific rules that you have to follow, that would be... It seems exhausting to keep up with, to be quite honest with you. I mean, we can go into it. I mean, other people have talked about it, and we'll probably talk. It'll probably come up in conversations tonight. But if you are doubting tonight and you are watching, I encourage you to call in and talk to Lloyd. I think he would love to have a conversation with you. He has a YouTube channel as well that you should check out as well. And for anybody else who's interested, and just in the beliefs in general, I think you provide a great resource for that. And I haven't actually read your book, but I am aware of it, and I've heard of it.
It's a thick book, so it's an arduous task.
It's on my. I'll put it on my Amazon wish list. I'll have to give it a read because I just find stories like that to be